So there you have it. According to Neil Ferguson, that the Finns are drinking to forget their unhappiness. According to Steven Pinker, they're toasting the happiness of life. It all depends on what's in the glass, I suppose. We now end with Olafur Eliasson, one of the great, great artists of the modern world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. I actually recently was on a panel with His Holiness the Dalai Lama on happiness and power and care. I'll get back to power in a second. And he answered pretty much everything with happiness, as you can imagine, being the answer to a lot. But when I spoke, I wouldn't say he fell asleep, but he had a brief nap. And afterwards I asked him, so I hope I wasn't boring, or I hope I wasn't... No, he said, finally I was relaxing, I was really happy. So if you fall asleep in a second, I will take it as a measure of success. Should you, by the way, you mentioned showing this at the Tate. I actually have an exhibition at the Tate, should you be passing London, by the way, for the rest of the year. So don't hesitate to come, of course. Of course, Victor and his family were so kind to come to the opening, and I promised to, in return, to come and advertise my exhibition at the Tate here with him, in fact. See, now, what was interesting of the two talks we just heard was that obviously they were drawing evidence based on the past. It was very interesting, right? And much inspiring, in fact, that we could see where we come from. We could see everything we have achieved. But I would like to talk a little bit about the future imaginary, right? It's interesting because I think there is this notion of, imagine if 50 years ago, our parents or our grandparents would ask us today to send them a letter. And then we could send them the lecture with Stephen. And our grandparents and parents, they would be quite impressed and say, wow, that's not bad. So why don't we make a small experiment now? Imagine that your children or your grandchildren, I can see some of you as your grandchildren, sends you a letter from 50 years from now. And in the letter, and now you have to imagine what's in the letter, but in the letter, of course, we know what we know today about what is going on in the world. We also have the answers to a lot of the things. And we could ask ourselves, why are we not then doing it? So just hold on to this and maybe do it tonight when I'm not interrupting you. Think about what would you write yourself? What would your children write you about how to create the next 50 years, the next 60 years, or the next 10 years, right? The Paris Agreement and the climate proposal is really down to 11 years now. So I like this notion of experimenting about asking the future. Because as an artist, I very often think about, am I going to allow myself to be guided by the past? As inspiring as it was, Stephen, I really think it's up to us, especially the youngest one of us, to be guided by the future. The future is obviously, as a source of inspiration, a guide, a compass to how we guide the present, something which is also about what's the difference about being progressive and conservative. If we only look for the past for answers of what's right and wrong, we're not going to solve the challenges that are new, such as the climate, for instance. See, now there's an amazing quote which I think resonates with this notion of how we make art and how does artists work. It's the great thinker, visionary thinker Thomas Sankara. You cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. In this case, it comes from non-conformity, the courage to turn your back on the old formulas, the courage to invent the future. It took the madmen of yesterday for us to act with extreme clarity today. And then he says, I want to be one of those madmen. We must dare to invent the future. And even though this was not in an artist context, it really, I think, resonates with the notion of, well, what does artists do? Obviously, artists, and as you can see, I also make reference to comedians here, what comes across as being mad, what comes across as being a little bit out of, should I say, sync with our expectations, there is this notion that it really takes courage and madmen to create tomorrow, because otherwise it's going to look like yesterday, and we are not going to have people moving ahead if tomorrow is not looking better than yesterday. We can't get people to go ahead unless tomorrow is better. So it's great to see an amazing sort of proof of the past, but we also need to work on the future. Let me make a small experiment. I have two small experiments. First, you sit with your arms crossed. Well, I can't do so. You sit like this, arms crossed. Okay, are you comfortable? Then you put your right hand on your left shoulder, up here. The left hand is okay, it's down here, right? Maybe you lean your shoulder with your hand on it a little bit towards me. See, now for this to work, you have to do as I say, right? And in some countries they don't, but I said in Ukraine everybody will do it. So your left hand is relatively free, right? Just focus now. Hold firm on the shoulder, don't let go. Now with the left hand, you tickle the person next to you now. It's called the Tickle Experiment, and it has to do with you cannot tickle yourself. It's really funny. I mean, maybe some people can, but you know the point is, and this I didn't mean to drive down this road, but it was more for the madness of this. And obviously, me and Victor, we're working on the gender balance in the room. So, but we can easily do it here. It's almost only men, and therefore there will be no problems tickling each other, if you know what I mean. See now, I actually came to say something more important. The whole idea of happiness, of course, had to do with love. And I was literally with a lawmaker the other day who was talking, it's the great Mary Robinson of Ireland, who was talking to Kumi Naidu from Amnesty International. And Mary said something as nice. Because for me, happiness and love are connected. And I'm working on a work of art about this. That's why I feel it's relevant. Justice, because the term justice came up. The thought mentioned justice is institutionalized love. It's interesting, right? Of course, he's or she is drawing on the famous Tagore, the poet from India who got the Nobel Prize, who said, and this is also interesting, nationalism is institutionalized selfishness. Quiet. Anyway, as an artist, I guess I should say something about art as well. When we work with art, when we think about the future, we obviously think about what is the relationship between culture and the world, art and the world. What is it culture is actually capable of? And I'm sure you all have excellent answers to this, but allow me to sort of offer one perspective. And as you have noticed, there's amazing artworks, and then my work is outside as well. In the spirit of Victor and his commitment to culture, I think culture has this ability to, when you read a book, you see a dance or ballet or listen to music, or you look at a painting or a work of art as such, you are sometimes in a situation where you say, I know that feeling. This book, this is me, that person in the book, or that painting. I recognize this problem or this solution. And suddenly it is as if the painting or the artwork or the book is giving language to what you feel, but you haven't quite articulated yet, right? So you could think of a work of art or culture and identity in a country, for instance, as something where I leave the exhibition having given the opportunity to be seen by the painting, because it was as if the painting gave language or gave structure, gave colors, gave architecture to what I was emotionally already dealing with, but I had not quite come around to articulate it. It was as if the artwork was listening to me. So I always refer to art not as something that you look at to take it in. You're not consuming. It is, in fact, the artwork that is looking at you, and the artwork is listening to you. And in societies where there is not a lot of listening, culture plays a significant role in hosting the people who feel not listened to. Who is listening to me? Why should I vote if nobody cares about me anyway? So do you see, culture as a societal element offers an opportunity for people to feel included. So this is a longer topic. I just wanted to sort of throw that slightly deeper end in it as well. And it so happens that I brought a present from you. So I brought a small present for you. I will tell you where it is in a second. I bought about maybe 5 hours of sunshine. I mean, today it's not so, it's really hot and so on, but I really, quite literally, I sort of harvested the sunshine in a little container. And if you will spend the next 15 seconds on taking the little present that Victor and the foundation and the event and myself have given you, if you look under your chairs, this is not a tickling experiment. You can just look down underneath your chair. You'll find a little box, and if you open the box, you'll see something which has to do with happiness, which is a present for you to take with you. And I believe some of you saw it last night already. See, now inside of this there is a rechargeable battery, and on the back there is a solar panel. So it's very simple. If you do like this in the sunshine, you can harvest the sun, right? Or you can also just put it in the window or put it outside. And if you want to see, it happens to be harvested in Berlin. So you want to see how the Berlin sun looks. It looks like this, right? So this is a little power station. It's a little station to empower us. And I actually thought I could, in a second, make you all turn it on. Are you already closing the box and putting it in your package? I'm not done with you. Can you take it out and turn it on? I thought maybe I should do a quick photo of you. Now you better do it, because I'm going to send it to Victor, and he's going to see who is not turning it on. You know what I mean? Oh, this is much better. Now the sun is shining in here. But you get the picture, right? No, I'm not done with you. Hang on. Oh, it's a lot. Could you maybe just like go over here? And then you go up, sunrise, sunset. Okay, we do it one more time. We start over here. Sunrise, sunset. Oh, you're great. No, but you see, the point here is, this is solar energy. I don't have to tell you the whole story. And obviously, I'm very much a believer that the future is going to be depending on solutions like this. So I, as an artist, said, why don't I very quickly also become a solar entrepreneur? As we have 1 in 7 people in the world without access to electricity. So this project is actually a not-for-profit project driving solar energy into areas in the world where there's no access to energy. So what I'm competing with is, in fact, the fossil fuels. So I'm in the energy sector. I'm sort of lobbying. Me and Victor will lobbying for solar energy in this moment, as you can tell. But the point here is, if you look at the design, and this is really where I wanted to end this, you have to inspire people that the future is going to hold the answers. And if the design, if the artistry, if the shape of things is not positive, if it doesn't look like tomorrow is going to be better than yesterday, the design, I believe, has failed. So I was working a lot with, how do we create a happy design? How do we create a design where people say, I wear this around my neck when I go to work in the morning or when I go to school, and I'm proud because I can empower myself with this. Well, it's not a Gucci bag yet, but solar energy, as you know, is the future. So in that sense, this is a bit of a offspring of my artistic practice, where I've tried to use the artistic skills, but also the emotional skills on how to drive change and how to push happiness into design to fast forward or to rapid support the necessity to go from fossil fuel-driven systems into sustainable systems. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was completely fascinating. Though I have to tell you all, while you were doing your sun movements, I did think they do it much better in North Korea. They have much more coordinated, much more, so I'm not sure whether that's a sign of happiness or unhappiness, but I will just make that point. Let me ask you, I think we have time for one question. Is it the job of an artist to make people happy? Because a lot of art, it seems to me, is designed to have other effects. When you look at Picasso's Guernica, I don't think you are meant to be happy.
I think there is no rules about what is right and wrong in making art, first of all. But one could argue, of course, that the Guernica is of such extreme beauty and it's so touching that maybe the happiness is more about long-termism. Because we live in a world where the currency is the immediacy. And if we think of this amazing work of art with the mothers whose son has been lost to war, I would even argue this, in the long-term perspective, drives an energy which also has elements of happiness in it. I understand this is not a very happy work of art, but it's an amazing work of art which is touching us because it reminds us of the value of what we could call peace and equality and a good life.
Fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, fascinating session. Thank you to all three speakers.
Thank you so much.
And now, something that should make you happy, which is lunch in the room across the hall. Thank you all.